Virelle drank the wolf's bane at midnight. Not the way the stories said it was done. Not in desperation. Not in grief. Not with tears streaming down a face that begged the world for a different ending. She drank it the way a healer drinks. Measured dose. Empty stomach. Full intention. She had spent 3 years learning what wolfsbane did to the bond. 3 years studying it in texts the pack kept locked away. In the journals of witches who had been dead for centuries. In the residue she scraped from the inside of Theron's private cup when he wasn't looking. She knew what it did. She knew what he had been doing. And she drank it anyway. The fire came first. Not the bond's fire. She had never had that. This was something older. Something that lived in the space between the witch blood she had buried and the wolf's bane that was supposed to kill it. The poison hit her stomach, and her body did what her body had always done with things that should have killed her. It didn't die. It changed. Her hands went violet. Not the faint shimmer of a healer's aura. Violet flame. Real flame. The kind that didn't need fuel or air. The kind that burned in the bones themselves. The kind that hadn't been seen in the bloodline since the last Witch Queen. And across the valley, in a room where the Alpha King sat alone with his 3rd cup of the night, the bond he had been poisoning for 6 months went silent. Not weakened, not suppressed. Silent. Because it wasn't in Virelle anymore. She had pulled it out by the root. And in the space where it had been, something else was already growing. Something that answered to no king. She set the cup down. She looked at her hands, the violet flame reflected in her eyes, and the woman who looked back from the dark window was not a healer who had overstayed her welcome in someone else's story. She was the story. She had always been the story. She had just stopped letting someone else tell it. 3 days earlier, Virelle had found the wolf's bane in Theron's blood. Not by accident. She had been looking. She had been looking for 6 weeks, since the night he came to her bed, and the bond between them felt like a room with the furniture rearranged. Still there, still recognizable, but wrong in a way she couldn't name until she pressed her healer's hands to his chest and felt the specific, unmistakable signature of aconite metabolizing in a wolf's bloodstream. Wolf's bane. The poison that severed the bond. Not killed it. Severed it. Thinned it. Made it quiet enough that a king could sit beside his fated mate and feel nothing. Made it quiet enough that he could look at her across a council table, and his eyes did nothing. Made it quiet enough that when she touched him, the thing that should have sung between them like a struck bell gave back only the dull thud of something wrapped in cloth. He had been drinking it for 6 months. She knew why. She had watched the reason build in the weeks before the silence started. The way his eyes changed when she healed a wounded scout, and the light from her hands was brighter than it should have been. The way the pack's elder had looked at her, and then at Theron with the specific expression of someone doing arithmetic they didn't like. The way the council had started using a word she had heard before only in old stories. Witch. The Alpha King's fated mate was a witch. Not a healer with a talent for herbs. A witch. The bloodline that had ruled the supernatural world before the wolves took it. The bloodline the wolves had spent 300 years making sure never rose again. Theron had made a choice. He had chosen his throne over their bond. And he had done it the way kings did things. Quietly, strategically, with a cup of poison at night, and a face that gave nothing away at dawn. Virelle had watched him for 6 weeks. She had watched him drink the bane, and she had watched him sit across from her at breakfast, and she had watched him not feel the thing that burned in her chest every time he entered a room. She had watched, and she had said nothing, because saying something would have been a request, and Virelle was done making requests. Chapter 1. She didn't drink the wolf's bane to kill herself. She drank it because she was the only healer in 3 territories who understood what wolf's bane actually was. The pack called it a poison. The witches had called it a catalyst. The difference was in the blood of the person who drank it. In a wolf's blood, aconite attacked the bond's neural pathways, burned them out like a fire burning through a wire. That was the severance. That was what Theron had been doing to himself. But in a witch's blood, in blood that carried the old lineage, the dormant fire, the inheritance Virelle had spent her entire life pretending she didn't have, wolf's bane did something else entirely. It woke the thing it was supposed to kill. Virelle had found the reference in a journal that was 200 years old, the handwriting of a witch named Valia who had documented, with clinical precision, what happened when a dormant witch drank aconite with intent. Not the accidental exposure that sometimes triggered a healer's talent. Deliberate, measured, controlled ingestion. The poison hit the dormant bloodline like a match hit kindling. The witch's power didn't die. It ignited. Valia had written, "The Bane does not kill what sleeps in us. It is the key that was designed to keep it locked. Turn the key, and the lock breaks. The door does not close again." Virelle had read that passage 11 times. She had cross-referenced it with 3 other texts. She had tested the chemical composition of the aconite in Theron's cup against the descriptions in Valia's journal. She had spent 3 nights verifying that what she was about to do was not suicide. It was an ascension. She prepared the way a healer prepared. Clean workspace, empty stomach, measured dose. Not the amount Theron drank, which was calibrated to suppress, but the amount Valia documented for awakening. A different quantity, a different purpose. The same poison, repurposed. She wrote a letter, not to Theron, to herself. 3 lines on a piece of paper she folded and placed beneath the cup. He tried to kill what we are. I am what he tried to kill, and I am done being quiet about it. She set the cup on the table. She sat down, she picked it up, and she drank. Chapter 2. The fire started in her fingertips. Not heat, not the warm golden light of a healer's touch. This was violet, deep, saturated, the color of the sky at the edge of night, and it moved through her hands the way water moves through cloth, spreading, soaking, finding every channel her healer's training had opened, and filling them with something that was not healing. The awakening had no teeth. That was the thing Valia's journal had not prepared her for. Not the pain, not the tearing the text described, but the opposite. Every year she had pressed her palms flat against her thighs and told the fire in her blood to be still. Every day she had dimmed the shimmer in her hands so the pack wouldn't ask questions. She had been holding her breath for 12 years. The wolf's bane did not ignite her. It simply let her exhale. Virelle's body did not fight. Her body had been waiting. Every year she had spent suppressing the shimmer in her hands. Every time she had dimmed her healer's light so the pack wouldn't ask questions. Every night she had pressed her palms flat against her thighs and told the fire in her blood to be still. All of it had been pressure. And the wolf's bane didn't ignite the fire. It released the pressure. The violet flame climbed her arms. It reached her chest, and she felt the bond Theron had been poisoning, catch fire. Not die. Catch fire. The aconite that was supposed to sever it met the witch's blood, and the combination did something Valia's journal hadn't predicted, because Valia hadn't been bonded to a wolf. The bond didn't break. It transformed. It had been a wolf's bond, a thing of instinct and territory and the low animal pull that brought fated mates together. A leash, Theron had called it once. A chain. Something that bound a king to a woman the council said was unworthy. The wolf's bane burned the wolf out of the bond. And what was left was not a wolf's bond. A wolf's bond was a volume dial. It could be turned down, suppressed, poisoned into silence. Kale had been turning it down for 6 months. What replaced it was not a dial. It was a frequency. It didn't get quieter. It changed what it was tuned to. And what it was tuned to now was not the Alpha King's claim on his fated mate. It was the old blood's recognition of its own. It was a witch queen's bond. And a witch queen's bond did not give him power over her. It gave her presence over everything he was. Virelle felt it happen and understood, for the first time, why Theron had been afraid. The wolf bond had been manageable, suppressible. A king could drink his bane and sit across from his mate and feel nothing. The wolf bond was a volume dial, and Theron had been turning it down. The witch bond was not a volume dial. It was a frequency. It didn't get quieter. It changed the channel, and the channel it changed to was one where Virelle was not the woman the council said was unworthy. She was the woman the old blood answered to. She was the witch queen, and the bond that connected her to the Alpha King was no longer the thing that gave him power over her. It was the thing that gave her power over him, not through domination, through recognition, through the simple, devastating fact that the Alpha King's wolf, the thing beneath the politics and the throne and the council and the Bane, recognized what she was and went still, not afraid, reverent, the way a wolf goes still when it encounters something older than wolves. Virelle stood in her cottage with violet fire climbing her arms and the bond remade in her blood, and she felt Theron feel it. Across the valley, in his room, she felt him feel it. The sudden, absolute silence of a man who had been drinking poison to kill a thing and had just discovered the thing was not what he thought it was. She let him feel it. She let the silence sit for a long moment. The length of a breath, the length of a heartbeat, the length of the specific pause a woman takes when she has decided to let a man understand what he has done before she shows him what she is going to do about it. Then she opened the door and walked toward the Alpha King's fortress. She did not run. She did not hurry. She walked the way a woman walks when the question of whether she will arrive has been replaced by the certainty of what will happen when she does. Chapter 3. The guards at the gate didn't stop her. She had expected to be stopped. She had prepared for it. The specific words she would use, the way she would hold her hands so the violet flame was visible, the tone of voice that was not a request but not a threat, something in between that said, "I belong here and you know it." She didn't need any of it. The guards looked at her, and their wolves went still. The same stillness she had felt from Theron across the bond. Not fear, recognition. The animal beneath the man recognizes something older than the man's politics. They opened the gate. She walked through the courtyard, and the pack members who were still awake came to their windows. Not one of them spoke. Not one of them moved to intercept. She felt their wolves reach for her, through the bond she now shared with every wolf in this territory. Not the individual bond she had with Theron, but the ambient connection, the pack sense, the low hum of collective awareness that she had always been able to feel but had never been able to influence. She could influence it now. The violet light pulsed, and the pack sense shifted. Not dramatically, not violently, like a river, adjusting its course by a single degree. Subtle, permanent. She climbed the stairs to Theron's chambers. The door was open. He had felt her coming. Of course he had. The bond he had been poisoning for 6 months was burning in his chest like a brand, and it was no longer the quiet, manageable thing he had been suppressing. It was the thing he had been afraid of, and it was walking toward him on 2 legs with violet fire on its hands. He stood in the center of the room, not at his desk, not on his throne, standing, the way a man stands when he has run out of positions to retreat to. His cup was on the table, empty. She could smell the aconite from the doorway. "You drank it," he said. Not a question. The bond told him. The bond she had remade told him everything. What she had done, why she had done it, what it had cost her, what it had given her. The witch bond didn't allow for the kind of selective silence the wolf bond had tolerated. It was honest. Devastatingly, irrevocably honest. "I drank it," Virelle said. He looked at her hands. The violet flame had not gone out. It was banked now, low and steady, the way a fire burns when it has found its hearth. But it was there, visible, impossible to ignore or explain away. "You knew what it would do. I knew what it would do to me. I knew what you were doing to us." She stood in the doorway, not entering, not leaving, the threshold between the woman she had been and whatever she was becoming. "I decided to do something about it. Virelle, you have been drinking wolfsbane for 6 months. Her voice was level, not raised, not trembling, the specific steadiness of a woman who had spent 6 weeks building this sentence and had polished every word. "You have been poisoning our bond because you were afraid of what I am, not what I might become, what I already am. You knew. You have known since the first time my hands glowed and you looked at me like I was a problem to be managed." She crossed the threshold. He didn't move back. He didn't move at all. "I am not a problem to be managed, Theron. I am not a variable in your political calculations. I am not a thing you can suppress with a cup of poison and a council vote." She stopped 3 feet from him, close enough that the violet light from her hands fell on his face, close enough to see the specific expression of a man who had been managing a situation for 6 months and had just discovered the situation was managing him. "The bond you tried to kill is the only reason I am standing in your room right now, instead of the Ashwoods where it would have ended." He absorbed that. The way he absorbed everything. Silently. Completely. The king's mask holding, while the man beneath it did arithmetic he didn't want to finish. The council. "The council can meet me in the morning." She said it the way someone says the sun will rise. Not a challenge. A fact. I will be there, and you will not be drinking anything before I arrive. She turned to leave. Virelle. She stopped. She didn't turn around, not because she was being dramatic, because if she turned around right now, the bond would show him everything. The 6 weeks of discovery. The 6 months of silence before that. The years of dimming herself so the pack wouldn't see. The private grief of a woman who had loved a man who was afraid of what she was, and had chosen to address his fear by killing the thing that connected them, rather than facing what the connection meant. She didn't want him to see that yet. Not because she was hiding it, because she wanted him to earn it. You felt the bond change, she said to the door. You know what it is now. You know what I am. And you know that I chose this. I didn't wake up by accident, Theron. I didn't stumble into power. I walked into it with my eyes open, because the alternative was letting you kill us both, 1 cup at a time. She felt him behind her, the bond that was no longer a leash but a bridge. She felt his wolf reach for her through it. Not the aggressive, territorial pull of a wolf claiming what was his, the desperate, reverent reaching of a wolf that had just understood, at the deepest level beneath thought and politics, that the woman in front of it was not the thing it had been afraid of. She was the thing it had been waiting for. I'll see you at the council, she said. She walked out. Behind her, Theron stood alone in a room that smelled of aconite and violet fire, and the specific, devastating silence of a man who had just been shown the full scope of his mistake by the woman he had made it about. He looked at the empty cup. He looked at the door. He did not reach for the bottle. Chapter 4. The council was already assembled when Virelle entered the hall. 12 members, the senior wolves of the territory, each one carrying decades of political instinct and the particular wariness of people who had survived by being very good at reading rooms. They had been summoned at dawn. They did not know why. They knew only that the Alpha King had called an emergency session and that the healer's cottage had been seen glowing violet from the road. Virelle walked in, and 12 wolves went still. Not the political stillness of people choosing not to react. The animal stillness of predators recognizing something that was not prey and was not threat, but was something else entirely. Something that occupied a different category than the ones they had built their world around. She was not afraid of them. That was the thing that changed the room. She had been in this hall before, standing to the side, head down, the healer called to give testimony about a wound or a sickness. She had always been afraid, not visibly, not in a way they could have named, but the wolves could smell it. The faint, sour edge of fear that every human carried in a room full of predators. The fear was gone. She stood at the center of the floor, and the violet light was not on her hands. It was in her eyes, a depth, a color, something that shifted when she looked at you, and made you feel that you were being seen at a level beneath the one you presented to the world. Theron entered from the side door, not from the main entrance, not with her. The geometry of his entry said everything about where they were. He was the king, she was the woman the council had been whispering about, and the space between them was the specific distance of a man who had not yet decided what to do about the thing he had done. He took his seat. The council waited. Virelle did not wait. My name is Virelle, she said. I am the Alpha King's fated mate. I am also a witch of the old blood. These two facts are not in conflict. They have never been in conflict. The conflict has been manufactured by people who found it convenient. The elder, a silver-haired wolf named Torin, leaned forward. The council's concern is not with your bloodline, Virelle. It is with the implications of a witch, bonded to the Alpha King. The historical record. 300 years of propaganda written by the victors. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The witches did not fall because they were weaker. They fell because the wolves convinced them they were. And the wolves spent 3 centuries making sure no witch remembered enough to test the claim. Silence. The silence of a room recalibrating. I have not come to argue history, she said. I have come to tell you what has changed and what has not. What has changed is that I am no longer suppressing what I am. The wolf's bane that was being used to suppress our bond has been repurposed. The bond between myself and the Alpha King is now a witch's bond. It cannot be severed by aconite. It cannot be severed by council vote. It cannot be severed. She let that land. What has not changed is that I am still a healer. I still serve this pack. I still treat your wounded, manage your fevers, and sit up with your children when they're sick. That has not changed because of what I am. It has always been what I am. The only thing that is different is that I am no longer pretending to be less so that the people in this room can remain comfortable. Torin looked at Theron. Theron's face gave nothing. The king's mask. The same mask he had worn for 6 months while drinking poison in the dark. The council recognizes your service, Torin said carefully. The question is one of power balance. A witch bonded to an alpha king creates a concentration of power that the council does not control, Virelle finished. That is the actual concern. Not balanced. Control. Torin's mouth closed. I am not asking the council for permission to exist, Virelle said. I am informing the council of what has already happened and offering the terms under which I am willing to work with you rather than around you. She felt Theron's eyes on her. Through the bond that hid nothing now, she felt the complex thing that was happening in his chest. Not anger, not relief. Something that had no single name because it was 6 months of secrecy and 3 years of love and 300 years of inherited fear, all colliding at once in the space behind his ribs. She didn't look at him. Not yet. She was doing something, and the thing required the room, not him. The terms are these, she said. I remain the pack's healer. I do not interfere in pack politics unless the pack's actions threaten the bond or the territory. In exchange, the council does not interfere with my practice, my research, or my bloodline. The bond between myself and the Alpha King is recognized as what it is. A witch's bond, which means it is not a political alliance that can be dissolved. It is a fact of nature. The council may manage around it. The council may not manage it. She paused. Those are the terms. They are not negotiable. I am not asking. The room held its breath. From the council floor, a voice she hadn't expected. Theron. Not his king's voice. Not the voice that commanded armies and silenced rooms. The other one. The one she had heard at dawn in a bedroom that smelled of aconite. The one that had said her name like it was the last honest thing in his mouth. The terms are accepted. The council turned to him. Torin opened his mouth. The terms are accepted, Theron said again. The bond is recognized. Virelle's position is formalized. The council will draft the acknowledgement by the end of day. He was not looking at the council. He was looking at her. And through the bond that hid nothing, she felt what it cost him to say those words. Not the political cost, the personal one. The cost of a man who had spent 6 months trying to kill the thing that connected him to the woman in front of him, and who was now standing in front of his council and choosing it instead. Choosing her. Not because she had forced him, because the bond that no longer hid anything had shown him what the wolf bond had been too shallow to reveal. That the woman he had been afraid of was the woman he had been looking for, and the fear had been the same thing as the love, just turned inside out. Virelle felt it. She let herself feel it. She did not soften. She nodded once. Good. She walked out of the council chamber and left 12 wolves and 1 king sitting in the silence of a room where the rules had just been rewritten by a woman who had stopped asking for permission. Chapter 5. The rider came at midnight. Virelle felt him before the guards announced him, not through the pack sense but through the witch bond, which had a longer range and a finer resolution. A wolf rider, not one of Theron's. The scent signature was wrong. Northern pack, the Voldar territory, the one that had been pressing borders for 2 years. She was in Theron's study when the guard arrived. She had not sought him out since the council. She had not avoided him either. She had been in the pack's healing rooms, then in the archive, then in the cottage, doing the things she had always done while the territory reorganized itself around what she had become. She let him have the space, not because he deserved it, because she was still deciding what she wanted to do with it. He's carrying a formal challenge, she said, before the guard opened his mouth. The guard looked at Theron. Theron looked at her. How do you know that? The guard asked. Because I can feel what his wolf is carrying. It's not a message. It's a declaration. She looked at Theron. The Voldar Alpha has been waiting for an excuse to test your territory. A witch bonded to the Alpha King is exactly the excuse he needed. He's going to frame it as a threat to the supernatural order. Old politics. The same argument that took down the witches 300 years ago. Theron dismissed the guard. They were alone. The Voldar Alpha, Raynar, has 400 wolves, Theron said. I have 300. He's been building his numbers for 2 years. If he frames this as a territory challenge, backed by the Old Covenant, the prohibition against witch-wolf bonds, other packs will side with him. I know. You know. He said it flatly. And you walked into the council and announced what you are anyway. Yes. Because you expected this. I expected something like this. Thy are his, not mine. She sat down across from him. First time in the same room as equals since the transformation. The bond hummed between them. Not the old pull, not the leash. The bridge. The thing that connected them at a depth where neither could hide. I announced what I am, because hiding what I am is what created this situation. You hid me. You poisoned the bond so no one would see what I was. And Raynar found out anyway, because secrets don't protect people, Theron. They just delay the moment of exposure and make it worse when it arrives. He took that. He didn't deflect it. He held it the way he held difficult things, without pretending they were lighter than they were. What do you want to do? He asked. She looked at him. The question mattered. Not the content. The form. He was asking her. Not telling her. Not deciding for her. Not making the calculation alone, and presenting the result as policy. Asking. I want to handle it, she said. Handle it how? Not with an army. Not with a territory challenge. Raynar is coming because he thinks I'm a vulnerability. A weak point he can exploit to fracture your territory. He expects you to defend me. He expects the challenge to be about you, your strength, your right to hold what you have. He is not expecting me to be the one who meets him. Theron's jaw tightened. Virelle, if you think I'm going to let you don't let me do things. Quiet, level. The same voice from the council chamber. The voice that wasn't asking. That's the first thing you need to understand about what's changed. I am not asking you to let me handle this. I am telling you that I am going to handle it. And you can either stand beside me while I do, or you can stand in my way. Those are your options. They are the only options. The room went very still. His wolf reached for her through the bond. She felt it. The instinct to protect. To place himself between the threat and the woman. The same instinct that had driven him to drink the Bane. The belief that protecting her meant controlling the situation. Controlling her. She let the bond show him the difference. She let him feel, without words, without argument, the specific quality of what she was offering. Not exclusion, not dismissal. Partnership. The kind where two people stand in the same storm and neither one is behind the other. You've been protecting me by making yourself smaller, she said. That's not protection, Theron. That's a cage. And I just burned the door off. He was quiet for a long time. The fire in the hearth. The bond between them. Honest and open and hiding nothing. The sound of a man's entire framework for love being dismantled and rebuilt in real time. If Raynar challenges you directly, he said finally, as a witch, under the Old Covenant, then he challenges a witch queen under the Old Covenant. And the Old Covenant has a provision for that. One that hasn't been invoked in 300 years because there hasn't been a witch queen to invoke it. She paused. Single combat. Champion against champion. The challenged party chooses who fights. And you'd choose myself. The silence that followed was not the council chamber silence. It was the private, personal silence of a man who had just been told that the woman he loved was going to stand in front of an army and fight, and who was being asked, not told, asked, to trust that she could. The Old Covenant allows it, she said. A witch queen may answer a challenge personally. Raynar won't expect it. He'll bring his strongest wolf, his champion, and I will meet that champion not as a healer with a talent for herbs, but as what I am. You've never fought. I've been healing for 12 years. I know every bone in the wolf body. I know every nerve, every artery, every place where the body is vulnerable. I know what a wolf's bane does to a wolf's system because I've been studying it for 6 weeks. And I have a power that no wolf in Raynar's pack has seen, because no living wolf has seen a witch queen fight. She looked at him. I don't need to be stronger than his champion. I need to be something his champion doesn't have a category for. Theron looked at her for a long time. The bond opens. The fire is low. The specific weight of a man letting go of the last piece of a framework that had been broken since before he met her. Then I'll stand beside you, he said. Good. She reached across the table and took his hand. The first time she had touched him since the transformation. The bond flared. Not the old fire, not the wolf's pull. Something deeper. The bridge. The real bridge. The thing that connected them at the level where love and power and fear and trust were all the same fire, just burning at different intensities. His hand closed around hers. Careful, the way you hold something you almost destroyed and have just been given back. She let him hold it. She didn't pull away, but she also didn't stay. I need to prepare, she said. She let go of his hand. She stood. Tomorrow, when Raynar arrives, I'll be ready. She walked to the door. She stopped. Theron. He looked up. You drank the Bane because you were afraid of what I would become. I drank it because I was tired of being less than what I am. We were both drinking the same poison for different reasons. She looked at him over her shoulder. The difference is that mine worked. She left. Chapter 6. Raynar came with 400 wolves. He came in wolf form, the massive gray and black shape of an alpha at the head of his pack, moving across the open ground with the slow, deliberate weight of a man who has already decided what the outcome will be. His champion walked beside him, a wolf the color of rust, twice the size of a normal pack member, scarred across the muzzle in a way that said, I have done this before. Theron's wolves lined the fortress wall. 300, outnumbered. The math was simple, and not in their favor, and every wolf on that wall knew it. Raynar shifted. The man was broad, weathered, the kind of face that had been hard for so long it had forgotten how to be anything else. He looked at the fortress, at the wolves on the wall, at Thorn standing at the gate. I have come under the old covenant, he said. His voice carried the way alpha voices carried, not through volume but through the bond, through the pack sense, through the frequency that every wolf was tuned to. The Alpha King has bonded with a witch. The old covenant prohibits this. I invoke the right of challenge. Theron stepped forward. The challenge is noted. The Alpha King's champion. The challenged party is the Witch Queen. Not Virelle's voice from behind him. Clear, carrying. Not the Alpha's frequency. A different one. Older. The one that made wolves go still and listen the way they listened to things that came from beneath the world they had built. She walked past Theron, through the gate, into the open ground. Raynar looked at her. His champion looked at her. 400 wolves looked at her. She was not in armor. She was not carrying a weapon. She was wearing the healer's coat she had worn every day for 12 years, and her hands were at her sides, and the violet light was not visible yet. Under the old covenant, she said, a witch queen may answer a challenge personally. I am the challenged party. I answer. Raynar's expression shifted, not dramatically. The recalibration of a man who had prepared for one scenario and was now looking at a different one. You are not a witch queen, he said. You are a healer who discovered magic she doesn't understand. I am a healer. I am also a witch queen. These are not contradictions. She looked at his champion, the rust-colored wolf, the scars. Your champion is impressive. How many challenges has he won? 7. Then he's due to lose one. Raynar's champion shifted. The wolf's lips pulled back. The growl that came from its chest was the deep, chest-rattling sound of a predator that has been challenged and has never lost. Virelle looked at it, not with fear, not with aggression, with the specific, clinical attention of a healer assessing a patient, the way she looked at wounds, at fevers, at the specific ways bodies broke down. Single combat, she said. Your champion against me. No weapons, no intervention. Old covenant rules. Raynar looked at Theron. Theron was standing at the gate, and his face was doing the thing it did when the woman he loved was walking into something he couldn't protect her from, and the bond was showing him exactly how afraid he was, and exactly how much he trusted her, and the two things were the same fire burning in opposite directions. The old covenant allows it, Theron said. His voice was steady. the king's voice. But beneath it, through the bond that hid nothing, Virelle felt the man. The specific sound of a man's heart breaking and rebuilding in the same moment. Raynar nodded. Begin. The champion lunged. The wolf was fast. Faster than a human should have been able to track. It closed the distance in 2 seconds, jaws open, aiming for the throat. The killing strike, the one that ended challenges before they became contests. Virelle raised one hand. The violet fire didn't explode. It didn't blast. It opened. The way a door opens. The way a hand opens to show what it's been holding. The violet light spread from her palm and met the wolf in midair, and the wolf stopped. Not violently. Not the way a wall stops something. The way a thought stops. The way certainty stops doubt. The wolf hung in the air for a moment. 2 seconds, maybe 3. Suspended in the violet light. Its muscles locked. Its jaws open. Its eyes wide with the specific expression of a predator encountering something that is not prey and is not threat, but is something that operates on a level the predator's body doesn't have instincts for. She set it down, gently, the way a healer sets down a tool. The wolf scrambled to its feet and backed away, not retreating, resetting, trying to find the angle, the approach, the strategy that would work against something it didn't have a strategy for. It lunged again, this time lower, going for the legs, the sweep, the takedown that used speed instead of force. Virelle didn't raise her hand this time. She stepped into it, into the lunge, into the jaws. She placed her hand on the wolf's skull as it passed, and the violet fire went through her palm and into the wolf's nervous system, and the wolf's legs went out from under it. Not pain, no damage. The precise, targeted disruption of a healer who knew exactly which nerve cluster controlled hind leg motor function and who could, with the witch's fire, reach into a body and touch it the way she touched it when she was healing. Just not gently this time. The champion went down. It lay on the ground, breathing, conscious, unable to move its legs, not paralyzed, temporarily disconnected. The healer's knowledge turned sideways. Virelle stood over it. She looked at Raynar. "Your champion is not injured," she said. "He'll recover full mobility in approximately 10 minutes. I know this, because I am a healer, and I know exactly what I did to him, and exactly how long it will last." She paused. "I could have done damage. I chose not to, because I am not here to hurt your wolves. I am here to show you what I am, so that you can decide whether the old covenant is worth enforcing against someone who can do what I just did." She looked at the 400 wolves behind Raynar. Every one of them was still, the specific stillness she was becoming familiar with, the stillness of wolves recognizing something older than wolves. "The old covenant was written to keep witches subservient," she said. "It was written by wolves who were afraid of what witches could become. I understand the fear. I have spent my entire life being afraid of what I could become." She looked at her hands. The violet light, banked now, steady. "I am not afraid anymore, and I am not interested in dominion over your packs. I am interested in being left alone, to heal and to live, and to love the man I am bonded to, without a council, or a covenant, or an army telling me I am not allowed." She looked at Raynar. "Take your champion home. Let him recover. And if you want to talk about borders and territory and the future of our coexistence, I will be in the healer's cottage, where I have been every day for 12 years, and the door is always open." Raynar looked at his champion on the ground. He looked at Virelle. He looked at his wolves. He was not a stupid man. He was a man who had come with a framework. Witches are dangerous. The covenant exists for a reason. The Alpha King has weakened himself by bonding one. And the framework had just been dismantled by a woman in a healer's coat who had put his champion on the ground without drawing blood. "The old covenant," he said carefully, "will be reviewed." "Good," Virelle said. "I'll bring the original texts, the ones the wolves didn't burn." Raynar shifted. The gray and black wolf turned and walked back the way it had come. His pack followed. 2 of them paused to lift the champion, who was already starting to regain feeling in his legs. Virelle watched them go. Then she turned and walked back through the gate, past Theron, past the 300 wolves on the wall who were looking at her with an expression she had never received from a pack in her life. Not fear, not deference. Pride. She walked through the courtyard and Theron fell into step beside her, not leading, not following. Beside. The texts, he said, the original covenant, are in a vault beneath the old archive that I found 3 years ago and haven't told anyone about until now. She looked at him. I've been busy. He looked at her. The bond opens, the bridge between them carrying everything. The 6 months of poison, the 3 years before that, the 12 years of a healer dimming herself so wolves wouldn't be afraid, and the 12 hours since she had stopped dimming and the world hadn't ended. It had just changed. The way a river changes when you remove the dam. Not destroyed. Freed. You could have told me, he said. About the vault. About the texts. About all of it. You could have told me about the Bane. Silence. The truth of it sitting between them like a stone. Neither of them needed to pick up, because they both knew exactly where it was. I was afraid, he said. Plainly. Without the thing he wore in public. Without anything. Not of you. Of what loving you would cost. I know, she said. I was afraid of the same thing, and then I realized that the cost of not loving you, of letting you kill the bond 1 cup at a time, was higher than the cost of becoming what I needed to become to survive it. She stopped walking. They were in the courtyard. The sun was coming up over the eastern wall, gold on the stone, the same gold that hit the healer's cottage every morning at this hour. I am not the woman you drank the Bane to forget, she said. I am the woman you drank it to remember. You just didn't know it yet. He looked at her in the morning light. The violet in her eyes, the healer's coat, the hands that had just put down a champion wolf without drawing blood. The woman who had been right here, in this territory, for 12 years, dimming herself so he could sleep at night. I know, he said. She reached out and took his hand. The fire between them, the bond, the bridge, the thing that had survived poison and silence and fear, and 300 years of a covenant designed to prevent exactly this, settled into something warm and steady and permanent. Not the wolf's fire, not the witch's fire, something that was both, something that was theirs. Good, she said. Then we start from here, the rest of it, the Bane, the silence, the 6 months, that's the road we took to get here. I'm not interested in the road anymore. Epilogue. 3 weeks later, Virelle stood at her work table, sorting valerian, when the door opened. She didn't look up. She knew the footfall. She knew the weight of it. The particular way he moved through spaces. She had known it for 3 years, and she would know it for the rest of her life. Not because the bond told her, but because some things get written deeper than magic. Theron set a cup on the table. Tea. Not Bane. Tea. She looked at the cup. She looked at him. I made it myself, he said. No aconite. I should hope not. I've seen what that stuff does to a wolf's liver. He sat down across from her. The same geometry as the night they had discussed Raynar's challenge. The same table. The same light. The same 2 people. Different in every way that mattered. The Voldar territory signed the revised covenant, he said. Raynar was surprisingly reasonable once his champion regained feeling in his legs. He's a pragmatist. Pragmatists are easy. It's the ideology you have to watch. And the witches? The ones who've been hiding in the human territories? 3 have made contact since the challenge became public. 2 healers and 1 who doesn't know what she is yet. I'm meeting with them next week. She paused. Apparently I've become something of a symbol. You've become exactly what you were always going to be. She looked at him. The bond between them, warm and steady, the bridge that had replaced the leash. She felt what he felt. Not control, not management, not the careful political calculation that had driven him to drink poison in the dark. Something simpler, something that didn't need a king's mask or a council chamber, or 300 years of propaganda to justify itself. He loved her. Not the wolf's love, the instinctive territorial pull that could be suppressed with aconite and ignored with willpower. The other kind. The kind that existed in the space where the wolf bond had been. The space the Bane had cleared. The space the witch bond had filled. The kind that was chosen, not imposed. Built, not born. She had burned down the thing that connected them so that something real could grow in the ashes. It had. The tea's getting cold, she said. I noticed. She picked up the cup. She drank it. It tasted like tea. Just tea. The morning light coming through the window, the valerian on the table, the door opened to a world that was rearranging itself around a woman who had stopped pretending to be less than she was. Was Virelle right to drink the Bane, to force the transformation, instead of waiting for Theron to stop being afraid? Or should she have given him more time to choose her on his own? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story found something in you, subscribe to Moonlit Romance Stories. The next story is already waiting, where passion meets prophecy. I'll see you there.